Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. Time for another book review. A little small one. I realised I did a double book review in the last video and I talked about two books and it went on for quite a long time about intermingling themes, but I want to get into the habit of doing standalone book reviews again, and I think in the last few weeks I've read a lot of Australian books. So I thought I should start doing small, so you can ingest them really quickly, or digest them really quickly, or skip over them if you feel like you don't want all of the Australian book reviews. But I do read more Australian books than anything else, so I thought I should do this. So this is the first one, and this was in response to Jacqueline from 6 Minutes From Me reviewing the same book, which is Laura Elizabeth Woolett's The Newcomer. Beautiful, I'll put it up here, but it's a beautiful cover with a tagline that says there's no such thing as a perfect victim. Now, you would call it broadly a mystery, but it's very much outside of the mystery genre when it comes to structure and how the story's been built and how it's all laid out and how they develop characters. So this intrigued me and I had already started reading it when I watched 6 Minutes For Me's review, and I said I would give my response because it really is a strange little book. I've never encountered anything quite like it. Let me give you a rundown of the story really briefly. Broad brushstrokes. So Paulina decides to upend her life and move to a place called Fairfolk Island, which is modelled on a real-life island way off the coast of Australia called Norfolk Island, which is renowned for being a little bit quirky, and the people there are all direct descendants of the people from Mutiny on the Bounty. So if you've seen these movies or any of these stories about the ship that was passing through the area, there was a mutiny on board, and a guy called Fletcher Christian took a whole bunch of the crew and went to this island called Norfolk Island, and there they ended up marrying, I guess you would be a term for it, the local indigenous population, and a community was born. Now, in order for you to live there in this day and age, you need to be a direct descendant of those original landing parties that arrived there. So it's so that people go to visit, and they're just renowned for being very quirky. So the story's set on this Fairfolk Island, and Paulina arrives, tries to find whatever work she can, and she does waitressing, cleaning, and all types of things. But her life is an absolute mess. And I've read lots of books like this recently where the main character's life has been just a complete mess, or debacle of a life. Anyway, she has a drinking problem, and probably you would call it more than a drinking problem. She is a drunk, and she also has an eating disorder, and she also has a troubling relationship with her mother, and she also has many troubling relationships with many men. And seemingly that was happening before she arrived. She was running away from something in Sydney. So when she arrives in Fairfolk, this entire lifestyle starts to catch up with her. And the first half of the book is, by my own admission, I think I really struggled to get a handle on what was going on here. And I almost got to the point of saying, no, this isn't for me, this isn't working. And then it changed. It really changed and became such a page turner that for the second half of the book I ripped through it in like one night and half an hour the next night just to finish it off. The problem I had was, and it's my fault, not the author's fault. The problem I had was that it wasn't following mystery novel conventions. I've banged on this channel for so long about the resurgence in Australian mystery writing, and I thought, great, here's another one. And it is so not that. It is so much more than just a mystery novel, because a mystery novel generally goes like this. There's a murder, then people come along to help solve the murder, whether they be police or family or some random who just got caught up in the whole thing. And then there's lots of intrigue, there's a whole bunch of witnesses, and there's a whole bunch of people that are considered suspects, and then the big showdown at the end leads us to who the murderer was. And that's generally how these mysteries play out. But it doesn't play out like this at all. We have a murder. In fact, the main character, Paulina, is the person that's murdered, and we find that out very early in the book. She has this troubling relationship with her mother, Judy, who then comes to Fairfolk just before she's murdered and is there for the next little while and spends many years trying to find out who the murderer is. But there's no police. There's one policeman that's mentioned in the entire book, fleetingly, and he seems to do nothing. So we don't see the investigation. The investigation is not part of the book. So all of that tension wrapped up in investigating a murder is not there. So you get your tension from this dual narrative of the mother trying to look for answers and battling her own grief and working out her own life and what that means with the space left by the death of her daughter. You've got that. And then you've got Paulina's life in the lead up to her murder, which was just a shambles. There are so many things that happened to Paulina from the time she arrives on Fairfolk to the point of her death, which are described in great detail. The sexual encounters, the violence, the drunkenness, the misadventure, the poor decision making, all of this. And I guess the point that the author is trying to make is that at any time, in any of these instances between arriving on Fairfolk and then the time of her death, that it could have been stopped. At any point, any of these interactions with all of these awful men that she had along the way could have stopped what happened at the end. So, and then I guess that's the tagline, the point of the tagline, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. Paulina is by no means a perfect victim. She is full of misconceptions because she is her own worst enemy. And I'm sure everyone would agree she is her own worst enemy. That doesn't mean that she deserves to be murdered. But in some of the characters that we see in Fairfolk Island, they do believe that her own actions led to her murder. So we have all of these issues of victim shaming, and we have all of these men who end up as not witnesses, but as people having motive to commit the murder. So the list of suspects is pretty much anyone on Fairfolk, because she burned a lot of bridges, and she had a lot of experiences that were incredibly bad, that at any point could have been stopped and could have stopped her death. And I just found that second half just something new that I'd never encountered in a mystery before. That this is not about the investigation. This is not about the murder itself. It's character driven. It's about the life of Paulina and the life of her mother. So what the author's really cleverly done is focused in on the victim and made the entire story about the victim. To the point of, we don't ever know the details of the actual murder. We hear that she was stabbed many times, but to describe the act and the man that committed that act, we never hear. So there's no description of that. There's blow-by-blow descriptions of absolutely everything else that happens to Paulina in the lead up to her death, but the actual events of her demise are never laid out. And I think that's a really super strong point that the author's trying to make, that victims are more than just what happens to them at the end, that they're a collection of everything that has come before, and there were multiple points to stop this from happening. And I guess that's what the author's trying to do here. I found it absolutely fascinating. And as a fan of Australian mystery, I found this just such a fresh take. And at the beginning, to have such negative feelings about it, and almost to the point of saying, it's not for me, I think I'm going to put it down. I kept going, and then all of a sudden it just switched, and I got it. I got that it wasn't a mystery, that it was something very, very different, something a lot more important than that. And once I got to that point in my own mind, man, this was a fantastic book. I do urge you to get it. If you're at all a fan of mysteries, put all of your preconceptions aside about what a mystery should be and just let go with this, because it's a character-driven, mystery-filled non-mystery. What a weird way to describe a book. A mystery-driven non-mystery. There you go. You heard it from me first. A mystery, non-mystery. There's something in that for all of us. Have a great day, everyone, wherever you may be. And I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.